All right, should we go now?
Bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, bum, bum.
There we go. Hello, everybody. It's your good friend Pozzible here, and I'm here with Joe.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about one of our favorite things. I mean, there's nothing more awesome than a good old-fashioned superhero movie. And let's start off with Public Enemies. Boy, if I can talk.
Well, that's all right. I'll take over for the show. Yeah,
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and you know what this is? This is Batman, Superman Adventures, also known as...
Public Enemies?
No, that's the name of the show, but what's the name of their comic book?
Oh, World's Finest.
World's Finest, exactly.
Well, you got to remember, I'm into the new stuff now. World's Finest is Power Girl and Huntress.
It's just not the same.
I know, it's not.
It's not the same.
World's Finest was Batman and Superman back in, I guess, the 80s, maybe 90s.
I think it even goes back in the 70s.
Yeah, but, you know, I don't remember when they actually ended that.
Because you know what? These two have a lot in common, but they also have a lot that's not in common.
I always like that because it's like in some aspects, they're like mirror image. In other aspects, they are polar opposites.
Exactly. I mean, you told me these things about them, too. Batman was everything a man could hope to be, whereas Superman was everything a man could actually be, or something like that.
No, Superman was everything that a person wants to be. Batman was everything that a person can possibly be.
Right.
You know?
Because I mean, one thing...
everybody dreams about being all powerful and all that, like Superman. But Batman is actually a realistic man. He went to Japan, trained. He used his wealth to get the gadgets. You know, out of the two of them, Batman is the most realistic. Exactly.
And I think that's one draw Batman always has had, is that he's never had any special powers. It's always been his mind and his intellect and his training.
And his gadgets.
And his gadgets. And yeah, one thing I remember is that his gadgets were self-made. Batman does have an extremely high IQ. You know, his father was a doctor and everything,
right?
And he's a very smart guy. They mentioned something like that in this particular movie.
You know, another thing interesting about Batman and Superman. You know, one thing they do have in common.
What's that?
The people that raised them.
Yeah.
Their parents. Okay.
All adopted. Yeah.
No, their moms.
Okay.
Both had the same name. Martha Wayne was Bruce Wayne's mother, and then Martha Kent raised Clark. I
actually did not know that.
Yeah.
I never realized that. That's true. They both had...
they both had moms named Martha.
Interesting. Because I was thinking, when you think of Batman, you often think of Alfred
raising him, yes.
Yeah. Because they're both, like, technically, they're both orphans, technically.
Yes.
You know, for those guys who do not know, Public Enemies, great movie, great comic book, and I like the fact that they were able to keep it the same. The comic book was the movie.
Yeah, they tweaked it a little bit, but I mean, it stands to reason. The comic was written, I believe, by Jeff Loeb. Jeff Loeb writes a lot of good stuff. I believe he was also he did Batman: Long Halloween and Dark Victory. I think that was Jeff Loeb,
right?
And I like his work a lot. He also did the Red Hulk for Marvel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's
again. I didn't like the later Red Hulk stuff, but the earlier stuff was really good.
Well, that's one of the problems with stories like this and, you know, movies in general. You get this beginning, and you get this person who has a vision and introduces all this stuff, and then you get the next person who tweaks it.
Yeah.
You know? That's one of the reasons why when you really watch superhero movies, you really can't hate continuity that much. You know, at the time of this taping, Iron Man 3 just came out, and a lot of people were upset about how they treated the Mandarin and what they did with the Mandarin. But they tweaked him to, quote-unquote, make him more real, to approach those who aren't interested in comic books, which is what I think is somewhat wrong. That's why we had that one taping, why movies are bad for the comic book industry.
Yeah, but I don't follow Iron Man. I don't read Iron Man comic books. So if I go in to see Iron Man 3, which I haven't seen yet, it's not going to be too ruined for me because, like I said, I know the basic premise of Iron Man, but I don't know a lot of his villains. I know Mandarin,
right?
I know him.
Yeah. Well, and that was the interesting part. I'm glad you brought that up. That, you know, I never followed Iron Man either. That's why I enjoyed Iron Man. Bucky and Frank, who do, I think, follow Iron Man at least more than we do. Yeah. They saw a lot of things that I didn't see. Like, you know, the whole 10 rings. So he called himself the 10 Rings. Big deal. It's just the name of his organization.
Right.
No, nothing important. However, if you're a follower of the series, you know it's very important. There was this one company too they mentioned, Rico or something like that.
I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah. They mentioned this one company that was in Iron Man 3, and I do forget the company name. I do apologize. But that said, Bucky said, you know, with that company, you could have introduced all these villains. And it never made sense to me because I don't know who these guys are. So it meant nothing to me, but it meant something to the people. I think that's one reason why Iron Man 3 gets so much, even though it's doing so well in the box office and everything,
right.
People are struggling with
it. I heard it was like number 2 after Avengers.
Yes, it's
as far as Marvel movies.
Exactly. In terms of what they've made so far.
Yes.
It's still going to be number 1 in the box office. I hear The Great Gatsby is coming out with it, and it's been gangbusters. Iron Man 3 is still number 1, though. Okay? So Iron Man 3, and why do we bring up Iron Man 3 when we're talking about Batman and Superman? Is because we're really talking about continuity and keeping things the same, and actually not continuity, canon. Being canon. That's what I loved about this. It was canon. It introduced elements that you wouldn't agree with, like Bane has a brief appearance in here, but it's the old-fashioned Bane.
Yes.
The one who needs the tubes
in the back of the head. Of course, now you keep in mind, Bane actually defeats Batman in the comics. Yes. And then Batman never got his revenge in that comic. It was a different guy who took out Bane. And in this movie, Bane attacks Batman. Batman just flips over and cuts his venom supply, and he's out.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, this was one of those great things because it's literally these two against the world in Public Enemies. Right. You have you have Lex Luthor being elected president of the United States, and Batman and Superman are struggling with it, even though the world is a better place now. Yeah. Even though Superman and Batman will never trust Lex Luthor, a lot of the people are willing to give him the chance, mainly because they didn't have the history that these two had. Now, of course, that's an interesting thing to say that, because when you think of history, you think Superman. Lex Luthor is Superman's villain, but Batman and Lex Luthor have had their moments.
Yeah, and in fact, that's one of the things I love about comic books. When Batman goes up against Lex Luthor, because Luthor doesn't even realize that he's going up against someone who's just as smart as he is in the boardroom, who has the millions of dollars that he does. He doesn't realize this.
Well, the reason he didn't realize this is because sometimes Lex Luthor is up against Batman, but during the night, and during the day, it's Lex Luthor versus Bruce Wayne. Or not really versus Bruce Wayne, because he thinks of Bruce Wayne as a friend, or at least as a fellow businessman.
Or a business rival.
Or a business rival, yeah, exactly. It depends on his mood. I mean, let's face it. If you're with Lex Luthor, you're either with him or you're against him. There is no in between.
Yeah, it's black or white.
And deep down, Lex Luthor really treats it like everyone's against him. He really has that mentality.
Well, he's out for himself. It's like he doesn't want to. He won't kill you unless he stands to profit. He doesn't see the profit in just senseless murder.
Exactly, but he definitely sees he definitely has a superiority complex of thinking that he's so wonderful and he's so great that he's in charge. Well, what happens here is that he uses that power to trick Superman into a meeting where he promptly frames Superman for murder.
Right. The murder of Metallo.
Exactly. And you know what? That was done very well, because even they fooled me, and I read the comic book, and I forgot what happened, but the acting was well done, and it's all about this chase and the world of all these villains bond together because of the bounty on their heads.
A lot of big names came back. Clancy Brown was the voice of Lex Luthor from the Superman series.
Oh, yes.
Tim Daly, who voiced Superman in the series, he was replaced by George Newbern in Justice League, but he comes back as Superman. Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Oh, yes. And
I mean, when you hear Batman speak, it takes you back to the 90s.
Right.
When you first got that, Batman on the small screen, the animated.
The animated series, and what a voice talent. I love the fact that he did such a great job of not just being Batman, but of being Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
And distinguishing the two. One of the best scenes, and I forget what was happening, but one of the best scenes in Batman the Animated Series is Batman, picks up the phone and calls somebody as Bruce Wayne. And you can tell there's that voice distinguishment, It reminds me of, Spider-Man, the Spider-Man series with Tobey Maguire.
Right.
They didn't try to hide his voice at all.
Yeah.
According to the old comic books, and we're talking about the really old original Spider-Man now, if you ever read it, they actually tear apart his uniform.
Right.
His costume and all of the gadgets he had. Spider-Man had lots of gadgets. We forget that.
Yeah.
It's always the web shooters, but he had lots of gadgets. But one thing they talked about was that Spider-Man also had this muffle He had some sort of film over his mouth so that his voice was deeper and it was disguised. In the Tobey Maguire, they did nothing to disguise it.
But they did something really cool when Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
What's that?
Well, they did something with his mask, so when Spider-Man said something, his mouthpiece didn't move, you know?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, that was kind of a hard thing to get moving also.
Of course, then again, they also gave him organic web shooters.
Right. Now, of course, now, this is one thing I kind of disagree because I like him. He's a voice talent also. Christian Bale. A lot of people don't know this, but he is actually a master of dialects and accents. And when he attempts to speak in a role, he tries to adopt a very special way of talking that's very particular to that role. I don't like what they did for Batman, for him. The way he just made his mouth so gruff.
Right.
Now, of course, during Dark Knight, the second one, they digitally altered it in post-production.
Yeah, I didn't like the second one too much with the voice thing.
The voice thing didn't work for me. I mean, I liked the second Batman, Dark Knight, because that was, for me, the only true Batman movie that they made. There's one thing they did hugely wrong in Dark Knight, and that was the dogs. Okay?
Yeah.
Batman's a genius. He will learn from his mistakes. So if somebody attacks him with a dog in the beginning of a movie, you can bet the farm he's going to have a gadget or something to do it during the second part of the movie.
Yeah.
But a dog attacks him against Scarecrow, and then Joker brings out, and what? He didn't know what to do? Never experienced a dog before? Come on! You know? But other than that, still the best of the series.
I still prefer Batman Begins.
I like that one, but
Batman Dark Knight, I think my big problem with that was just how many times can I watch the Joker? I mean, granted, after seeing that, I did get into the Joker in comics.
Right. Heath Ledger brought a very different Joker.
I didn't like his Joker, but he kind of opened me up to the Joker in the comic book, so I started buying comic books with the Joker in it.
I definitely felt that I liked it. But I love this show. You know, the Batman, Superman, Public Enemies, framed. I mean, what's so funny? It's just Superman. This is the best part about this, guys. Lex Luthor, of course, is Superman's enemy, so he's only going after Superman. However, Batman, his friend, his ally, and his compatriot, he is by Superman's side. And you know what? He could have just left.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, everybody else did. Everybody else was on Luthor's side, even though you could tell they didn't want to be.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't want to be on Luthor's side.
Well, Captain Adam had to be.
Yeah, Captain Adam had to be.
Because he's in the military. And who's the leader of the military? Who's the real leader of the military? It's the president.
Yeah, he's the commander-in-chief.
Right. So Captain Adam he was a good soldier.
Right.
Even though he disagreed with his commander-in-chief, he still went with it.
Now, also, one thing I remember about Captain Adam, and this was one of the small mistakes I had with this movie, he kept telling Superman how it was Lex Luthor, it was Lex Luthor, it was Lex Luthor. In reality, it was the courts. I mean, let's face it. There was evidence to suggest Superman killed him. Yeah. He has to face this through the court of law. This is not something you solve with your fist. This is something you have to solve through evidence or something.
Right.
There is also with all this little stuff going on, the frame for murder, Lex Luthor as president, there is also this humongous asteroid coming towards the Earth, filled with kryptonite.
It's a hunk of kryptonite. It's an asteroid.
Right.
Of kryptonite.
But it's a big honking asteroid. Think Armageddon, think Deep Impact. Boy, if anybody can remember those old movies now.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they're great movies.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's coming to Earth, and it's up to... I mean, ultimately, everybody wants to save it. But what's interesting is why they want to save it. These guys want to save it to save the world, but Lex Luthor wants to save it for his own image.
Yes, he wants to get the glory.
Exactly. But, and just when you think it's too late, they already turn around. Now, they do change the movie just a little bit. It's just a touch,
Yeah.
They changed a few things here or there because this is Batman, Superman. However, they kept it a majority the same, and I wish comic books could do that, Bring us to this kind of movies where it's canon and people are dressed up in the weird costumes, but they don't look weird,
Right.
It all fits. So it's no surprise Joe and I both give it a see it. I also give it a read it. It's based off a comic book. It's a great comic book.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read it yet, read it, see it. Like I said, they tweak it a little bit, but for the most part, they're the same.
I actually have a lot of these series. I think I have like 5 of them out of this series.
Right.
This one was probably my favorite.
Yeah, this one was very good. And you know what? It's just great stuff. So keep an eye on it, guys. And until then, we'll see you in the theaters.
Take it easy.